You ever ruin your life? James Sunderland receives a letter from Mary, his late spouse. She's waiting at their special place. Stricken, he travels to Silent Hill in search of her, wandering towards the nostalgic lakeside hotel where they once spent their honeymoon. Silent Hill 2 is legendary. The new and improved Team Silent blended what they'd learned from the first game with a bigger budget to perfect their formula while experimenting with innovative storytelling, bringing to life a deeply frightening journey that can only be told through a video game. So, how do you play this game in the early 2020s? Well, that's a bit of a scary puzzle itself. Aside from the mediocre HD collection, the console versions are all kind of pricey, requiring inconvenient legacy hardware to run seamlessly. Konami is a rusted-out dumpster that can't even hold a flame. There's no hope for another remaster. But hidden under middling reviews from an era before digital distribution is an abandoned PC port and a huge group of endlessly impressive fans dedicated to turning this into the definitive Silent Hill 2 experience. And let me tell you, they did it. Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition doesn't just feel like a collection of mods. It's a full remaster with more effort put into it than what you'd normally expect from even AAA developers. Everything is optimized excellently. It runs much better than the PS2 version does on most emulators, even a PS3. The audio is perfect. I never had to tweak any settings, and there were never any bugs or crashes. Capturing footage was a bit quirky, but overall, it just works perfectly and looks incredible. Everything has been manually upscaled, with special attention paid to each individual asset to offer a crisp, authentic look on modern displays. I constantly noticed details that didn't make it through the compression methods of yore, which along with the PC version's improved quality of life, makes one of my favorite games feel brand new. But that doesn't mean it's still not worth playing the console version if that's what you have. Gameplay is mostly identical to Silent Hill 1, being an adventure game with dungeons and puzzles. But things are a lot more polished. There's less backtracking through the empty streets. The enemies are less annoying. The last boss fight's a little disappointing, but there's no more flying guys or invisible screamers. Instead, the enemies represent James's personal fears, contributing to the atmosphere more than the challenge, which is pretty easy. There's separate difficulty settings for puzzles and action. Hard puzzle mode turns it into a Google it kind of game that I'd avoid, but on normal, everything is pretty intuitive. Action difficulty doesn't affect things very much. The enemies are always slow, and you can usually just shove them out of your way or give them a good stomp. The only potentially frustrating spots are some of the bosses, where it feels like you're fighting against the room more than anything else. It often breaks into a pattern of move, shoot, heal, repeat until something's dead. You don't need to worry about conserving anything. You find plenty of ammo and health items that are difficult to overlook as James stares at collectibles on the ground, compensating for the stressfully low visibility. I think that leaning into the technical limitations of the PS1 give the first game a stronger, or at least more unique atmosphere at times. But pretty much everything else is not even a comparison. Silent Hill 2 does it better. Especially the fucking story, my god. Within the dark, surreal visuals and disjointed, dreamlike cutscenes is a realistic tale about loss, guilt, and the difficult ethical choices that come with a loved one in pain. As you weave around Toluca Lake, you'll meet a small cast of uncanny and stilted characters who are each struggling with different traumas in ways that represent internal debates over James's experiences. There's no more irrelevant drug trafficking plot or anyone trying to solve the mysteries of the town. Instead, we have dark, personal subject matter about abuse and pain that's still manages to have a sense of humor.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Most lovable of these monsters is Pyramid Head, who punctuates the story with imposing set pieces symbolizing James's regretful memories. His striking design and violent entrance give the antagonizing figure an intimidating presence from the get-go. You feel vulnerable, nervous, and maybe even confused, just like James. These are the best parts of the game. They're stressful yet fun, telling a story through an emotional experience that wouldn't work in any other medium. Pyramid Head is one of the most iconic horror monsters of all time. It's easy to see why. The narrative overall is, abstract, but James's fears are not abstract. They are real, universal human fears. It's impossible not to relate to this story in personal ways that we may not want to admit, or even be aware of. But we're all afraid of these things. We're afraid of losing loved ones. We're afraid of losing control. We're afraid of being helpless, and we're afraid of being bad people. When you talk about Silent Hill 2, you talk about yourself. And that's why more than 20 years later, it still scares the heck out of me. I give it, tank controls.
Subscribe for more.